Hello YouTube, this is Mike. Today we're going to be talking about the 7 stages of a toxic cluster B relationship. Pick your cluster B flavor of choice, whether that be BPD, NPD, and all the other variations that I honestly don't know a hell of a lot about. Sorry, I didn't time things well, so I'm just finished eating. So I have one question for you before we begin. Do you want to heal? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to feel better? Sorry, stuff in my teeth. Do you want to heal? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to feel better? Because if that's what you want, then what I'm here to do is I'm here to share with you my ruthless attempt to do that. I found that in order for me to recover, in case you're new to my channel, I'm somebody who survived and recovered from a very toxic relationship with an untreated, undiagnosed borderline. Now, I've been through all kinds of stuff in my life, so much so that I've been in therapy and 12-step recovery for almost 40 years. And I had never experienced anything so horrifically damaging, traumatic, on the deepest level of my soul as having been in a romantic relationship with a borderline. So bear in mind, anything that I say about anybody else, any observations that I have about people who are in or have survived, and the methods and the ways, the strategies that they use to survive such things, bear in mind, I'm not coming from a place of superiority pointing outside of my experience. I'm talking about myself. So the ruthlessness that I employ with people on this channel is the same ruthlessness I apply to myself. So if you want to be happy, and do you want to heal? I mean, just ask yourself that question. Do you want to be happy and do you want to heal? And if the answer is yes, the only way I know to accomplish that is to be ruthlessly self-honest. So that's what I'm here to do. And I'm here to teach you what I did. There might be another way to do it. I'm not aware of it, but the more that I continue to make these videos and stay in this discussion with people, the more I keep learning about what's going on. So that's what we're going to do here today. So as you can tell, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm just, like I said, somebody who survived. So this is an arbitrary list. And I created this list of the 7 stages of being in a toxic relationship with BPD or an NPD. I created this list because recently I've been doing a lot of videos with some pretty scathing analysis of a lot of the videos that are out there. There's this whole group of videos that are made by people who are in the health, in the mental health profession. In some cases, these are doctors talking this way. And from what I can tell, there's a zero amount of recovery in it. And so I've been focusing on that and attacking what I think to be an unhealthy, extremely unhealthy strategy for dealing with the aftermath of having been with a borderline or a narcissist. And I wanted to get back to just identifying with you, because I am one of you. Whoever you are, if you've been in that position, I am one of you. I may have a strategy and a technique or techniques to do that you may not be familiar with. I may have understandings about myself that you may not share about yourself. But it's important to come back to just identify. Because if you can identify with me and I can identify with you, and if the methods that you're using to try and get your life back together aren't working as well as you'd like, here is an alternative perspective. And you can either take it or not. You won't hurt my feelings in any capacity. There's nothing anybody can say on this channel that will hurt my feelings or upset me. That's not true on my other channel. That's not true in other aspects of life. But on this channel, I understand that people are they're emotionally and psychologically compromised. That's because you've been in a horrifically traumatic battle zone. So you suffer from PTSD. If you've ever been in a relationship with a borderline or a narcissist, guaranteed you have suffered, if not continuing to suffer, from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. That's what happens when you're in a relationship with one of these unfortunate people. So, first, before we go any further, let me just lay down a couple of assumptions that I'd like for you to hang on to while we get into this. And the first one is that people with borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, cluster Bs, these are people who are mentally ill. That is not, I'm not pointing fingers at them. That's not an attack. They're not evil people. They might do very evil things, but they're not evil people. They're sick. They have a mental illness, which means that they are not rational. They don't have the ability to rationally understand their behavior. So let's just put that in there, hold on to that. Second assumption I'd like for you to hold on to before we go any further is that your pain that you have experienced and continue to experience, including your anger, even if you have righteous anger towards the abuse you suffered, that all stems from your desire to see them as being rational. Which again, we go back to assumption number one. They have a mental illness, which means that they are not rational. Emotionally, they are not rational. Sometimes mentally, they're not rational. But emotionally, for sure, they do not operate from the same rules that you do. Your pain, your cognitive dissonance, your anger, your resentment is a result of you trying to interact with an irrational person as though they are rational. I mean, I use this example a lot, but if you're standing next to somebody who has schizophrenia, they're bilocal, meaning they can, for them, there's no one place that everybody exists. They have difficulty with spatial recognition and all that kind of stuff. And you could be standing there looking in the sky and there'll be a plane flying and they'll look to you and they'll say, "Are you flying that plane?" And you'll say, "No, I'm standing right here next to you." Now, that's obvious to you that you can't be two places at once, but for the schizophrenic, oftentimes they don't have that understanding. So you don't hold it against them when they get mad at you for when you're standing next to them and somebody's driving too fast and they blame you for driving your car too fast. You don't get mad at them because they have a mental illness. So it's just as insane for you to be angry and to be hurt over somebody who doesn't have emotional rationality. Now, having said that, I'm not saying you shouldn't have your feelings. I'm just trying to help you understand. And that's been my goal in these past few videos, is to point out, people who spend their whole lives raging and railing against the narcissist. These are people who have a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of the scenario, which is that they are expecting the borderline to be rational when they're not. All right, so now let's get into it. Hold on to that. And again, keep asking yourself the question, because I'm going to say things that are going to challenge you, and you're going to feel as though I'm personally attacking you and smearing you, which I'm not. and know that whatever harshness that I use towards anybody in this scenario, I have used and continue to use on myself. And the end result is I get to be happy. I get to be free of all of that. And I am free. You know, it's easy for me to, you know, point fingers at, you know, how messed up I think people's, you know, narcissism is when they talk about how the borderline is evil and the narcissist is evil and our narcissist. It's easy for me to point my fingers at it because I'm not in it. I've healed myself of that. My codependence right now is not being stimulated in that arena. But once your codependence gets stimulated and gets activated, it's very hard for you to turn it off. And that's where a lot of you are. So a lot of you, even if you're out of the relationship and you've been out of it for years, you're still activated and you're still regressed, as a therapist would say. You're still regressed. And so I'm not in that right now, so it's easy for me to point my fingers and go, do you realize how ridiculous and stupid you're being? But that's because I'm not relating emotionally because I'm not there. But I have been. Anyway, let's go through the 7 stages. So let me take a look at the description here. So again, this is don't take this as some kind of, you know, scientific Bible here. I just randomly picked 7 stages in my experience and in my observation. So, cycles of a toxic relationship with an untreated borderline or someone with narcissistic personality disorder. The first, let's go through all 7. Seduction, devaluation, gaslighting, cognitive dissonance, appeasement, discard, repetition compulsion, and then rinse and repeat. And the whole point of this video is how do we get out of what would be the 8th cycle, which would be rinse and repeat, because that's the problem. There's no shortage of videos out there talking about all of these things in some way or other. But do they give you any means of escape? So let me ask you that. If you're out of the relationship and you're now, even if you're one of these people that has one of these YouTube video channels talking about the enemy and how you are going to defeat and destroy the enemy, has it given you any real comfort, peace, satisfaction? Or are you just reliving the pain all over again? If so, then you're in the rinse and repeat. Because we could talk about all 7 of these things and we can understand them and say, oh gosh, I've been there. But the real question is, are you able to stop the cycle? My prediction, I can't prove it, I'm not being psychic here, this is what I've seen, but it's my prediction. Those people who are no longer in their destructive, toxic relationship, if they're spending their time talking about how to destroy the narcissist and how the narcissist never gets over you and how, all of that, you are destined to experience it again. That false feeling of protection and invulnerability that your rage is giving you is just part of the cycle. You're just on your way back to the next borderline. Guaranteed. I guarantee it. It may take months, it might take years, but eventually you are going to attract another borderline or narcissist. And you might attract what's called an inverted narcissist. What is actually called a covert narcissist, which again people misrepresent. They don't understand what the word means. People also don't understand what the word codependent means. Anyway, we can talk about that another time. So let's talk about the 7 cycles. First one is seduction. And this is a 2-way seduction. It's not a 1-way seduction. It's happening on both ends. But if you are the partner of a borderline or a narcissist, your experience is that you will be seduced into the relationship. So my experience was, and you can go back and listen to my first videos where I talk about it, but my experience was I was definitely targeted. I mean, I mean, it looks that way. I was targeted. This was somebody who messaged me on a dating app, and and I didn't know anything about real borderline personality disorder. I'd never experienced it. I experienced a lot of toxic relationships, a lot of people with severe borderline tendencies, but there's a difference between that and a full-blown borderline. Just like there's people with all kinds of narcissistic traits, because everybody has narcissism, but then there's the actual person with narcissistic personality disorder. And I had never experienced that. So what I was experiencing was that there was this really wonderful, beautiful, conscious, intelligent person who was interested in me, and said numerous times that, I feel like we belong together, and my intuition is telling me that we're meant for each other and all that. And I was in a very needy state at the time, so I was primed to be stimulated. I was primed to be activated, for my codependence to become really activated. So I was primed for that. And so my experience was that I was being seduced. I mean, that was the experience afterwards, of somebody who targeted me and seduced me, telling me everything I wanted to hear, being perfect, and you've been there. The sex is amazing. They tell you how wonderful you are. That's because they are projecting onto you, as you know. That's called the idealization phase, where they idealize you, and they see you as being perfect. And what's happening is that they're always regressed. So borderlines are always in a state of regression. And NPDs also, they're always in a state of regression. They're emotionally arrested, as it's called. Arrested development. They're arrested in their infantile stage. And so as an infant, they want to idealize the parent. So they're seeing you as a parent. You don't know that because you're talking to a seemingly fully functional, intelligent adult. And if you're like me, my experience was that the love that I was getting seemed, well, it did seem too perfect. But I was hopeful and optimistic, and I didn't let that red flag stop me. But the feeling of the love was that it was very pure, and it was very interesting because there wasn't any hesitation on her part whatsoever. Sorry, went down the wrong pipe. I was experiencing her as being very pure in her love, which in my activated regression of codependence, I saw that as her being very conscious, that she had worked through whatever fears of intimacy, fears of abandonment. This is what I thought. She had worked through all that because she talked a really good game, and she sounded like she was really conscious, and she said that my thing's really about communication, which is my thing also. But I came to find out later what she sees as communication is something completely different from what I think it to be. In any case, so I bought into the magical thinking that was being presented to me, which was that, we're this perfect thing and we've met each other and now we're going to take care of each other, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's the seduction phase, which again is what's called love bombing or idealization. But you definitely will feel as though you're being seduced by your borderline and or narcissistic partner. All right, so the next arbitrary thing I have here in the cycle, which is after the seduction will come the devaluation. So this is really where your codependence will be fully activated. And so you're familiar with that term. You're either being idealized or devalued, and that's the perfect word for it. And bear in mind, you can be devalued in all kinds of ways. I mean, devaluation doesn't mean just that they rage at you or that they criticize you or they ghost you. They will find ways to slowly start tearing down your safety, your confidence, and your boundaries. They'll slowly start getting whittled away in a way that will make you feel increasingly more devalued. Like you will start to feel that you have less and less value. And this is a projection. Most people say, yeah, the devaluation didn't come in for, I went for a month, or I went through 6 weeks, their initial seduction phase, will be different lengths for different people. And so when I start talking about, that you went into this willingly, that you chose to brush aside the red flags, people will say, no, you don't understand. Seriously, I didn't see it coming at all. And, I was being seduced, and I was being manipulated, and I was being lied to. And the devaluation didn't come in until 6 months later. That's an illusion. The devaluation starts immediately, but it happens in very subtle ways, and it increases. So the devaluation will increase, because it's just like, going into, getting into cold water or hot water. You go a little bit at a time until you get used to it, and then by the time you're fully in it, you're more adjusted to it. So you don't notice how cold it is or how hot it is. Just like, that frogs will, you can slowly boil a frog just by slowly turning up the heat. Frog adjusts and then, boils to death. So the explosion or the betrayal or the ghosting or the discard or whatever it is that you consciously experience, the radical devaluation, that doesn't mean that's the first time you've been devalued. If you go back, especially if you have had healthy relationships. Now, it's possible that, in fact, it's not only possible, it's likely that many of you listening to me have never had a healthy relationship, and you've never been truly loved or seen, so you don't know the difference. But if you have, and you go back to your borderline experience or your cluster B experience, you will realize that you were constantly being split. There was micro splits happening all the time. You were constantly being devalued. There was, even if you can't put your finger on, they can be looking at you smiling, there was still this feeling of not being certain. There will be this fear and anxiety that will start to grow, which is your unconscious mind saying, I'm not safe here. This person, I'm not safe with this person. And that will happen even during the seduction phase. I can remember thinking to myself how amazing it is and how perfect she is. And there was just this feeling of, but it feels superficial. I wasn't going to say it felt fake, because I couldn't see that she was being fake. But there was something about it that felt like cotton candy. It was really tasty and sweet, but it melted in your mouth and rotted your teeth, and there was no substance to it. And so that created that feeling of, starting to create sort of an addiction of wanting more and the need to constantly validate it. And so the feeling that, that you start to get the feeling that you're walking on eggshells and that everything could could come out from underneath you at any point in time. So you'll remember that you had that. Maybe you didn't have a full-blown split, but it was happening. And you were being devalued even in the very beginning. But once that devaluation becomes huge and you get the real split where they split on you and they devalue you and attack you and whatever it is that they do, betray you, cheat on you, break up with you, ghost you, whatever it is, there comes that point where it's this explosion of complete reversal, and you're the worst person in the world. You go from being the best to the worst. So the second is the devaluation. If you're watching this channel, you already know what that is. I don't need to explain that really any further. So let's see, what is the third? The third cycle is the gaslighting. So here's the thing about the borderline. If their disease is, their mental illness is well developed, it means that they're not going to split on you until they have primed you to then be, till you're really attached. If you walk in and on the first day they just completely split on you, within the first hour, because trust me, they want to. I guarantee you they want to. I guarantee you there are splits happening inside of them all the time. But when it's early on, they have a lot of hope, and they believe that you're going to be the one. And so even though they're splitting on you, they have the ability to suppress that desire. You're going to experience it as they're going to say or do something that feels a little bit off. They'll do it with a smile on their face, but then they'll come back and hoover you back in, and it'll happen so fast you won't really notice it. But it'll begin to erode your confidence, as I said. But they're splitting all the time. So they're not going to go full metal split on you until you're attached. And once they've made themselves indispensable to you, and they can feel it, or when their mental illness is aware of that, then they'll split on you. And so the whole idealization is actually a setup for the split. That's not them consciously doing that, by the way. And this is the problem that I have with, the super empath destroys the narcissist, that whole genre of videos out there. The problem that I have with that is that they want to believe, they need to believe that the borderline or the narcissist has been planning this all the time. Because remember what I said earlier, the assumption if you want to heal is you have to firmly accept the assumption that the borderline and or the narcissist has a mental illness. Doesn't mean that they're emotionally irrational or they have issues. That's something that everybody goes through, and there's a lot of really messed up people who aren't borderlines or narcissists, who are still very toxic and are still, untrustworthy and will still cheat on you and betray you, but it's not going to be the same. So the mental illness is brilliant at planning these things out at the best time and when you are at your most vulnerable. Now bear in mind, that's happening to them as well. They're experiencing the same thing you are, but they're doing it to you and to themselves at the same time. Where are we at? We are at we're at the gaslighting phase or the devaluation. Anyway, gaslighting phase. So in the gaslighting phase, they're going to make it your fault. Now, if this is your first time being split on, when they split on you and they find really ingenious ways to make it your fault, now you're going to have an emotional agenda to make it your fault. Because if they make themselves indispensable to you, which is the love bombing phase, the seduction phase, they're going to make themselves indispensable to you, or feel that way. And this is why codependence, there isn't just codependence and borderlines and codependence and narcissists. They're all different flavors of codependence. So that's what all codependents do, including you. If you are in this, you also then, what you're going to do now after you've been split upon, you are then, in order to save what you want, which is to have that person love you like that, your agenda will be to get that love from them again. You will then seek to make yourself indispensable to them. Because in their devaluation, in their splitting, they're going to reveal to you how dysfunctional they are, meaning that they are going to have some kind of, some kind of handicap that they're going to need your help with, even if it's just you realizing how emotionally damaged they are, which of course at some point they're going to reveal to you how they've been wounded, how they've been damaged. They may have done that even in the beginning, which was part of the seduction phase, which would then, they're going to appeal to your wound by, revealing their wound. They're probably going to come to you as a savior, saying, I'm going to heal you of that wound of yours because I've been wounded the same way, etc., etc. And then, at some point you'll get enough information to know that they've been wounded. And that will be a cry for help. And you will then seek to make yourself indispensable to them. Now, they've already told you that you're indispensable to them because they've said to you that you're the perfect person. You've heard if you know anything about borderline personality disorder, that they have favorite people. So you're either their favorite person or their most hated person. And when you become their favorite person, the delusion that you latch onto is that you're always, that it's number one, that it's true, that you are in fact the person who has always been the best to them and nobody's ever been as good to them as you are, which isn't true. That's their delusion in the moment, which, they're not remembering they said the same thing to countless other people. But you think you're special, and you think you really are that one, so you are going to be the one that's going to save them, and they're going to let you know, you're the only one that can save me. Mine sure as hell did that. So that when she split on me, I had the delusion that I was going to be the one that was going to get her into therapy. And she allowed me to play with that for as long as it fed the dysfunction. But when it really came down to actually her going to therapy and get help, then of course it was the excuse to split on me. So let's see, I'm getting kind of lost here in this. So where are we at now? We're at the gaslighting phase. So the gaslighting phase is to get you to operate from your codependence, so that you will then choose to let yourself be the one that was wrong. And people to this day, people when they share with me that they've been out of their relationship for 6 months or 6 years or whatever, they still worry if that was their fault. Did I do something to make them reject me? Could I have done something different? And that guilt of that gaslighting is, again, part of the whole strategy of their mental illness, not they themselves. They themselves are victims of their own mental illness. This is an assumption you have to accept if you want to be happy. If you don't want to be happy, go ahead and blame them and call them all kinds of names and spend your whole life creating videos on how you're going to destroy the narcissist and how, all that. You can spend as much time as you want doing that, but you're not going to be happy. You're not going to heal, and you're not going to have a real relationship. You will only attract other severely damaged codependents. And people ask, what if two codependents come together? Well, one person is going to become the narcissist, and one's going to become the victim. That's just the way it is. Unless you heal yourself, you're not going to be able to attract somebody who's able to actually be there for you. You're going to find somebody who you attract and connect with via your wounds, which is a way of just keeping yourself in pain. All right, so let's continue. So the gaslighting then, your need to take on the guilt in order to not lose them, you will do that. You will choose to take that on. The ironic thing is that every time that you do that, every time that you let them gaslight you, you actually lose credibility with them. You lose respect. They do see you as on the one hand, they get their initial desire, which is to get you to supply them with, your empathy, your sympathy, your empathy, your help, whatever it is that you do to help them. That is their first goal, but they also will lose respect for you. They secretly want you to stand up to them and turn around and start abusing them. If you were to do that, they would fall at your feet. And there's people on here. Again, one guy, he changed his name, but he used to call himself the super empath until I called him out on all of his narcissism, and he's since changed his name. I don't even know what he calls himself now. And if you're the guy, if you're the super empath, I'm not attacking you or putting you down. I'm just reflecting back to you what I see. And again, it's up to you to get help and to get honest, if you're even able to do that. I don't know. The thing about narcissists is that they're incapable of being honest. They're incapable of looking at their vulnerability. It's like death to them. But that's what a true covert narcissist will do. They will come at the borderline or the narcissist as a victim. They'll set themselves up as the codependent. They'll make themselves indispensable to them. And then when the splitting starts to happen, they'll flip on them and they'll become, they'll go supernova. So this is the other danger about going supernova. You're actually then trying to be a greater psychopath. You turn yourself so psychopathic and abusive, and you'll even see that again. You'll see that in the video titles for these videos. The narcissist will never forget the true empath. The true empath will always, the narcissist will never forget you. That's their fantasy is to get the narcissist to fall for them in such a way that they'll never forget them, to devastate them. The super empath will devastate the narcissist, and the narcissist will never forget them. That is a fantasy. That's their psychopathic fantasy. So this is the danger, is that if you make yourself indispensable to the borderline, they gaslight you, they split on you and gaslight you, and if you choose to accept the gaslighting, then you continue the cycle, but they lose respect for you, which means that now they see you as, okay, so you're going to be the victim here. All right, so I get to victimize you. And but if you stand up for them and you turn around and you become the psychopath and you go supernova, then the possibility is that they'll turn around and willingly let you abuse them. And then it becomes this battle over who can abuse the other more. This is what, again, you super empaths don't realize that if you're not a secondary narcissist, you are on the path to becoming one. You're on the path to becoming the very thing that you've spent your career trying to, destroy. Like there's some spiritual battle between you and the narcissist. You've now become a narcissist. You're a narcissist in training. And you're now an inverted narcissist. You're now a covert narcissist. And to the degree that you rage at me for saying that is, again, as Shakespeare would say, methinks thou dost protest too much. Because I'm not saying anything that isn't true about myself. I almost went down that path. When, I knew that my borderline, after the what turned out to be the final discard, because I chose to go no contact, I was so embroiled in it, and I was so wrapped up in the rumination, and I was so wrapped up in the doubting of myself, and the gaslighting, and the pain, and the codependence, and the addiction to all of it, that I started to plan how I was going to become that narcissist that she used to date, because she had dated a narcissist before that she spent a long time with, and he was able and did all kinds of things to her, and she was willing to do all kinds of things for him. And I, in my grief and in my codependence, started fantasizing about that until I stopped myself and I said, first of all, I'm not going to win this battle. I'm not as damaged as her, and she will win. She's got far more to gain, and I've got far more to lose. So I realized I was, trying to go into, your first time into the MMA ring with, whoever the reigning champ is. you're going to get your ass handed to you. It doesn't matter how good of a fighter you are in your neighborhood. You're going up against a pro. So I realized that, and then the more important thing is I realized that it would really damage me. I'd be really damaging myself, and I'd be going against my own, values. So if you're willing to do that, if your desire is to follow the videos and make videos about how you are going to destroy the narcissist and how the narcissist never recovers from your loss, how the narcissist is always thinking about you, this is your psychopathic fantasy. And if you continue to play that song over and over again, if you continue to indulge in those videos, that's where you're headed. And you will go up against narcissists and borderlines who are far more skilled in narcissism than you are. And they will make mincemeat of you. All right, so that's 3, gaslighting. 4, cognitive dissonance. So there's the seduction phase, which is the love bombing. There's the devaluation, which will be either the micro split or the full-blown split. There's the gaslighting, where they make it your fault. And no matter what you say, there's nothing you can say that can convince them that what they're thinking is happening isn't happening. That no matter how hard you try to get them to see their projection, it's only going to make them dig in their heels even farther. And so you either do the waiting game or, wait till they come back to you or whatever it is. By the way, those of you who are in what you think a no contact phase is, which is, you think no contact is that you're not calling or texting them right now. And then when I tell you to go no contact and you say, okay, I'm going no contact. And then, a month later you say, yeah, so I went no contact, but then she texted me. What do I do? I'm like, that's not no contact. So if you haven't completely broken off all contact, meaning that you've blocked them on every single possible means of communication with you, whether it be phone, text, Facebook, social media, email, even moving, move to another place where they can't come and stalk you. If you haven't done that, you haven't gone no contact. And if you haven't gone no contact, you are still in the relationship. You're just in the gaslighting phase, waiting for them to contact you. You're in denial. So you haven't gone no contact until you've made it impossible for them to contact you, or at least done everything humanly possible to make that happen. All right, so let's see. Where are we now? Stage what? So cognitive dissonance. So the cognitive dissonance, it goes right, I already kind of talked about that. After you've been gaslit and you've been told that it's your fault when you didn't do anything, and you're desperately trying to figure out how to save this and how to convince them either that you didn't do anything or, like me, I took on the guilt a couple of times and I let her talk me into that it was my fault, that I forced the breakup to happen because of my fear of intimacy. And that's the thing, is that's not untrue. I did have fears of intimacy. And it's true, when she split on me the first time, I was like, she tried to hoover me back in, and I was just like, I'm having a really hard time doing this. I'm having a really hard time trusting you. And that was used against me, and then I bought into that, said, you're right, that's just my fear of intimacy. And then, it didn't change anything. You've been there. So the cognitive dissonance is when you're split inside yourself. There's a part of you that is telling you that you're being mistreated, that it doesn't make any sense, and then there's the other part of you that wants them to be rational. And this is the part of you, I don't care what part of the cycle you're on, if you're hating them and you're writing me long comments about how I'm too soft on the borderline and they need to be held accountable and all that, then your cognitive dissonance is that a part of you wants to see them as rational. And you're fighting with everything you have in you to see them as being rational. And the reason why you want to see them as being rational, evil people is because if you can convince yourself that they're rational but evil, then there's hope that you can talk them out of being evil. Because that's what happens with rational people. When a rational person is doing an irrational thing, you can appeal to their rationality, and you can help them understand it's not in their best interest, and or what you're doing is not actually lined up with objective reality. And a rational person will be able to hear that and then change and then never do that again. But that assumes that they don't have a mental illness. If you on the one hand are reading everything you can about how they have borderline personality disorder, and here's what borderlines do, or if you're with a narcissist and you know that they have narcissistic personality disorder and here's what they do, and you're figuring out ways how to either appease them or beat them, all those videos about the one thing to say to throw a monkey wrench into the narcissist argument, the one thing that narcissists can't stand to hear you say, going after that is you're trying to rationalize them. You're trying to turn them into rational people. Again, why would you want to do that? I don't understand. I don't understand why somebody would consciously say, now what can I do to beat the narcissist at his own game? I don't understand that kind of thinking. Because if you know they're a narcissist, then you know that they have a mental illness. You know that there's no chance of it ever turning into anything. Why are you trying to talk them into something? Now, I say that because I'm not, narcissists aren't my preferred flavor. My preferred flavor of cluster B is borderlines. So borderlines are I can understand the confusion surrounding that. Because borderlines, for me, they're very good at giving me the feeling that there's hope. Because that's, the going back and forth. I suppose narcissists do their own version of that I apparently, I'm not vulnerable to, because I see a narcissist coming from a mile away, if they're pure narcissist. Borderlines, no, they sneak under my radar pretty easily. As long as I am in a state of healing, as long as I'm in a state of recovery. And before we go any further, you cannot heal yourself. Watching YouTube videos does not count as therapy. Watching my channel, as amazing and wonderful as many people are saying my channel is not therapy. And you will not recover just by watching my channel. The best I can do is maybe crack open the cognitive dissonance long enough to show you that you need help. And the three things that I tell people do in my, when you click the join button, is therapy, coda.org, not codependence.org, it's just coda, coda.org. And then the third is some kind of daily meditative practice or spiritual practice, whatever, however you want to look at that. If you do that on a daily basis, you will heal from your relationship, even if it's been years. If you're still holding on to it years later, months later, even weeks later, it means you've been infected and you're still in it. Even though you haven't talked to them in 5 years, you're still waiting for them to find you. When you ask me questions like, what is she thinking? Or, she just contacted me again. Why is she doing that? Every time you ask me those questions, it means you're still in it. Now, bottom line is, I understand that's the nature of it. It's a disease, these dysfunctional relationships. Once you get infected by them, you're infected with that disease. And even years later, all they have to do is just raise their head and wave their hand, and you're back into it. Or somebody else comes along. Or even worse, if you go down this path of revenge, going supernova, if you go down that path, then you're not only making yourself vulnerable to whoever it was that hurt you, but you're setting yourself up for an even worse one. Because, the secondary psychopath, the inverted narcissist, the super empath, covert narcissist, They know exactly how to appeal to your wounds, and you won't see it coming. You'll think you're joining up with another person and we're going to walk down the path of destroying the narcissist, and then one or both of you is going to turn into that narcissist. Guaranteed, unless you do the healing. So let's see, where are we at now? So the cognitive dissonances, where part of you knows something is wrong and the other part of you is desperately trying to rationalize it and find the rationality so you can fix it. And we, call that cognitive dissonance. And it's a very painful, it's when you might as well put, this where you start to feel like you're going crazy. I remember feeling this anxiety in my solar plexus. There was an anxiety that was a black hole that was churning within me. And I could feel it getting worse and worse. I was afraid that physically it was going to make me physically ill. And that was my cognitive dissonance. That part of me was saying, you need to get the hell out. And the other part going, I can't live without her. I've got to fix it. I've got to figure out, if I can just figure out a way to get her to understand, then she'll change and it'll all be okay. And that is the hook. Once you're in there, they own you. And there's no getting out of it. There's no getting out of that hamster wheel. So then comes the appeasement. So after you've been devalued, gaslit, you go through feeling like you're going crazy because you're wondering if it's your fault, but you're inside, you're saying it's not your fault, you're being abused. Then you go through the appeasement phase, which is you go and try and appease the narcissist. You go and try and make it work. Your boundaries start to be eroded to the point where you're willing to do more and more and more in order to keep the dynamic going. And this is a very painful place to be. Then what that does is that stimulates the borderline to do the ultimate discard. So, as I've seen over and over again with people who think, here's the fantasy is that you're making progress with your borderline or with your narcissist. You're making progress. How that looks is you've been devalued more than once. Each time you've been devalued more than once, after that, there is this, they either hoover you back or you hoover them or something. There's some attempt to reconcile. And in that attempt to reconcile, there's going to be a lot of talking about what to do. And here's how you need to talk to me. The borderline's going to tell you, here's how you need to talk to me. You can't raise your voice. You can't have a strong look on your face. I can't help it. This is what happens. You're just going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to learn to give me what my needs are. Or you're doing the codependent thing and trying to lay down the boundaries and say to them, you can't go out at night and slam heroin. I won't let you do that anymore. And next time I'll call the cops. And, so whatever it is. And or there's this talk about, the feelings. And the borderlines are brilliant, absolutely brilliant at talking a really good game about their feelings. And see, the normal scenario, and this adds to the cognitive dissonance of it all, because in a non-borderline, there's going to be resistance. There's going to be a resistance of the normal person to reveal their inner feelings. And if they do, a non-borderline, if they become aware, I realize that I've been doing this because I want my mom's love and I'm projecting onto you this and you don't deserve that. That's my fear. And, when the non-borderline does that, that is an absolute sign that things are going to change. So this adds to the cognitive dissonance because borderlines are brilliant at nailing their feelings. They're also brilliant because they're so intuitive. They can get into your feelings and pull out your deepest feelings, and then there's this cry fest and you love each other and you hug each other, which creates a bond, which creates a feeling of love, which then stimulates them to discard you. So you'll go through this period of they'll discard you, and then there will be a conflict and or seeking of resolution, which will create an even deeper bond of intimacy, which will then stimulate the borderline's mental illness, which is to discard and destroy the person that loves them. So once you start creating a real love, because you think you're making progress, that then stimulates the final discard. So at some point, I don't care how long you've been with your borderline, unless they are in intensive therapy and have been in intensive therapy for years and years and years before they met you, they will discard you. And I've talked to, I appreciate the borderlines who have shared with me their honest experience, who said, yeah, I was in therapy for years and I still split and discarded on my ex. And it took them, what I hear is it takes about 10 years. 10 years of voluntary, intense therapy and intense self-examination with the tools that therapy provides, which, by the way, I don't. I'm not a therapist. That allows them the ability to then tolerate when they split, because your hope is that you're going to get them to stop splitting. In fact, that's the fantasy, the shared fantasy between you and the borderline, is that you are going to get them to stop splitting. You're going to love them so perfectly, get the love they never had, that they'll no longer need to split because they'll be able to trust you. They'll feel you and trust you. And you, in your narcissism, in your codependent narcissism of feeling like you are the only one, you are the super empath, you are able to save them. In your delusion, you will go after that, which will then, of course, create this scenario, which will create the intimacy and the bond, which is what both of you are trying to create, and then they will split on you. And when you have given all of the vulnerability that you are capable of and or willing to give them, when that final deepest of intimacy happens, they will discard you. They will discard you completely. The reason why, people want to ask why my relationship didn't last as long as theirs. And it was because I've been in therapy and in 12 steps for almost 40 years. So this was a year ago, when I was completely out of it. But that gave me the knowledge to know how to set a boundary. And that's all that I did. I wasn't out of it. I was still completely addicted and wrapped up, and all the things that I've described, that happens, I was in it. I had enough awareness to go, I need to set this boundary, which was, if you want me in your life, you're going to have to go to see a therapist for borderline personality disorder. Now, she played with me and with that for a while until the reality of that started coming up, and that created, I believe, the excuse for the ultimate discard. Now, that ultimate discard, I say in quotes, because if I had come back, or if I had waited for her to hoover me, which she would have done, I don't know how long it would have taken, but at some point she would have hoovered me back. But if she had hoovered me back, and if I had backpedaled at all on my boundary on, I can't be in your life unless you're in therapy. If I had backpedaled at all, then I would be right back into it. And it would be this ongoing thing. But because I had made that clear, and it was clear within myself, when I got that final discard, I had enough awareness to go, this is only going to get worse. And I became really aware of what I was dealing with. I wasn't just dealing with somebody who had borderline personality disorder and they need to get therapy and it'll all be okay. I was dealing with somebody that was chronically mentally ill. And there was no way that this was ever going to work. That the only thing that would happen is that my pain would get more and more intense. And I was already in a really bad place. So I made the decision then, after that discard, to then go completely no contact. And I have no idea if she's even tried to contact me. And again, borderlines are very intuitive. They know if there's the slightest chance within you, they can feel it. And so just the fact that I had gone so clear within myself, I think that in and of itself might have kept her from hoovering me back or attempting to hoover me back. But the truth is, I don't know, because I went so no contact. I don't know if she's made any attempt to contact me or not. Every now and then I get these phone calls that are from a number I don't recognize, and somebody will hang up on me, and I think, I wonder if that's her. It could be. You never know. Anyway, enough of that. So let's see. What have we got through the whole thing yet? So the final discard will happen, which again, final discard is in quotes. There are people who have waited 20 or 30 years to get their final discard. Here's the other thing about the final discard. The illusion is that you're making progress. You get discarded, you get bonded on a deeper level when you try and work things out, which then stimulates another discard, which then creates a need to create more bonding and intimacy, which means every time that you bond and create intimacy, again, you'll notice that the periods get shorter and shorter, but you're becoming more and more vulnerable. You become more and more vulnerable each time, because in order to create that bond, you have to create an even deeper emotional intimacy in order to create the bond. The deeper the emotional intimacy, the more damage and the more knowledge that the borderline has against you when they split. And so when you get to the point where there's nothing left, there's no intimacy left in you, they will then not just discard you, they will seek to completely, totally annihilate you. And talk to people, the longer they've been married for 10, 20, 30 years, the final discard is absolutely horrific. They'll try and destroy your reputation. They'll try and destroy any relationships that you have. They'll do things like, slash your tires and bomb your house and, physical violence. They will seek to steal all of your money, ruin any business that you have. It will be a total and complete destruction. So every time you get discarded, what's happening is that the borderline is completely destroying you to the extent that you have given them access to you. And again, every time if their hoovering works, it will stimulate you to make yourself more vulnerable and more accessible to them in the hopes of we're making progress. But this time, we really connected more deeply. We're making progress. You're not making progress. That's the delusion. That's the brilliance of their mental illness. Because by the way, the same thing is happening to them. They're doing it to themselves. The amount of damage they're doing to you, they're also doing to themselves. The progressive pain and damage that is being done to you, they are also progressing in the damage that they're doing to themselves. But they have a superpower you don't have, which is that they have the ability to go psychopathic, which means that they completely switch off any empathy. You don't have that ability if you're truly a codependent, unless you've been turned into a covert narc, which is every single person on YouTube who watches and or makes videos about how the super empath goes supernova and destroys the narcissist, and the narcissist will never survive the super empath, and the super empath is the kryptonite of the narcissist. That is you going secondary psychopath. You are becoming a narcissist. And we all know that there's no happiness in that path. You will not find happiness, you will not find peace, you will not find love. All you have to do is just look in the eyes of the people that make these videos. You'll see it. They're not home. Somebody's not home. They're really regressed and in a tremendous amount of pain. And that's the way out. The way out is to be honest and work through the pain, which is those three things: therapy, Therapy doesn't always work by itself. And let me just say before we go any further, there's no shortage of bad therapists out there. I know, because some of them have channels talking about going supernova. Just because they've gotten a degree in some kind of, counseling does not mean that they have any recovery. So if you haven't found a therapist that works for you, find another one. Keep looking. Don't tell me I've tried the therapy route and it didn't work. Well, I'm sorry that it didn't happen the first 5 times. Keep looking. Are you willing to get help? Go get it. And by the way, don't tell me that you can't afford therapy, because all I have to do is type in free online therapy and there's no shortage of options. So, there's ways to get counseling. Coda.org, CODA.org, the 12 steps. If I had to choose, if somebody said, what is the one thing to do? I can't do all 3, which of course you can, but I would say go to Coda, work the 12 steps, especially the inventory, the 4th step, which helps you to look at your resentments and your expectations and your desires of the other person, and how you were disappointed and how that goes back to childhood. Look at your resentments. That's the main thing in my experience that healed me from that relationship. I have no ill feelings about that relationship. I look on it back and I go, yeah, I remember. It's like, when you were a kid and you had a really bad flu. You don't go and shudder and think about it and, ruminate about, am I going to get the flu again? You don't do that. I was really sick when I was a kid, but I got over it. And you barely think about it. In fact, you'd forget, oh, yeah, I think I did have that. Yeah, I think I had that when I was a kid. If you want your borderline relationship or your narcissist relationship to be that, where you go, yeah, that I forgot all about that. Yeah, I dated some person who was totally nuts, really messed me up for a year, 2 years. Anyway, I almost forgot about that. How did you get over it? Oh, yeah, I did. I went to therapy and worked the 12 steps on it. And yeah. No, I hope they're doing well. I really wish them all the best. But I haven't talked to them in years. In fact, I haven't thought about them in years. You want to be in that space? You want to be in that headspace, or do you want to be in the headspace of the one thing that destroys the narcissist? The narcissist never gets over you, which is nonsense. The truth is that borderlines and narcissists actually never have any closure. So it is true that they will never forget you if you have a relationship with them, but they will they'll retool the relationship in their head. Well, they'll do exactly what you're doing. They'll turn you into the narcissist that did all these horrible things to them. So, the ironic thing is, if you want to be exactly like the narcissist, spend your whole life talking about how evil the narcissists are and what you can do to destroy them. That you just become one of them. All right, so those 3 things, therapy, 12 steps, and daily meditation. If you do that with everything you have on a daily basis, you can be completely healed of the relationship. You'll still have your codependence. That's not going to go away, but you can be in a state of recovery where it's not being activated. And that's the goal. And so that's a state of maintenance. All right. And then here's the part that we want to avoid, which is the rinse and repeat. That's the thing that people are missing. They go through all of that, and these are the people, again, who are doing the super empath, twin flame, going supernova. They think they're out of it. So I can talk about all 7 of the aspects of the cycle: the seduction, the devaluation, the gaslighting, the cognitive dissonance, the appeasement, the discard, the repetition compulsion. So that's going back into it. The repetition compulsion of when you're in it and you can't seem to get out of it, and after being damaged, then there comes this mental need to fix it, which then gives you this cycle of whatever that chemical is in the brain that is released. It's the same thing. It's an addiction thing. So you become addicted to it. You become addicted to the drama and then the resolution of the drama and then the drama and the resolution. Discard, hoover, discard, hoover. It creates a repetition compulsion where you have to keep repeating it. The maladaptive cycle where you never get out of the hamster wheel. So I can talk to any of those people who are watching those super empath, going supernova videos. They'll agree with every single one of these things: the seduction, the devaluation, the gaslighting, the cognitive dissonance, the appeasement, the discard, the repetition compulsion. They'll be 100% with me on that, and then they'll say, and that's why I've gone supernova. I finally stood up to and I got into, a discussion with somebody who said, all I'm saying is that we have the right to stand up to them. Which means what that person really wants to say is, I have the right to indulge in my absolute rage, my psychopathic rage. That to them means they're standing up to the narcissist, and that's not what standing up to narcissists really is. We do need to go through the phase of anger. You do need to allow yourself to have that psychopathic rage because of the damage that was done to you, because that separates you. But that separation is just the same side of the addiction. The opposite of love is not hate. So going supernova does not mean that you've healed and you've finally had enough and you're going to stand up and now you're in this healthy place. It doesn't mean that. It means that you're still desperately in love with them. Every person, that's why I say to every person that wants to tell me how evil their borderline was and how they need to be held accountable, I say, you're saying this because you secretly want to get back together with them, or you unconsciously want them back. And they'll say, no, I don't want them back. I'm telling you, that's the definition of it. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin. You can't hate somebody without having loved them first. You can't hate them if you didn't want something from them. The opposite of love is apathy. Apathy doesn't mean that you hate them. It just means that you don't care. I don't care. What is my borderline ex doing? I don't care. I honestly don't care. It's not that I don't care like I don't want to know. It's like if somebody said, oh, she's doing this now, I'd be, oh, great, or oh, too bad, depending on whatever it was. But I don't care. It doesn't have an effect on me or my life. I'm apathetic. That's the opposite of love. Hate, judgment, resentment means you're still in love with them. Crimes of passion. That somebody gets killed because they caught their wife cheating. That rage doesn't mean they don't love their wife. It means that they love their wife so much, the thought of them being with somebody else is so intolerable that they have to kill them. Those multiple murders where the person will murder their family and then themselves right afterwards. It's the same thing. They're killing their family because of the rage that they have, but they can't tolerate being away from them. So if you really are healed, you're going to be apathetic. You're not going to care. You're not going to be full of rage. So this is the rinse and repeat. The repetition compulsion will create that obsession with how to get back, and you're still thinking about them and talking about them years later. And then you're right back into it. And again, just because you're not with your borderline doesn't mean that you're still not attached and part of the dynamic. Again, just because they haven't called you doesn't mean that you aren't still in the relationship. In fact, people will describe their relationship with, it's been off and on for 10 years now. And then I find out that, among those 10 years, the offs will have been for 1 or 2 years. And I'm like, what do you mean it's been on and off? They left you for 2 years. They were married to somebody else for 2 years and now they're back and it's an off and on thing. They're revealing that even though the person is gone, even though they're still married to somebody else, you're still in it. This is why you talk about the twin flame, because that's what twin flames. It's just the ultimate codependent scenario where they get involved with somebody who's probably borderline or narcissistic or something like that, somebody who has abandoned them, and they can't let go of it, so they turn it into this spiritual union. They spiritualize it and say, oh, we're twin flames in the 5th dimension, Even though in the third dimension, the other person is married and has kids with somebody else. Oh, but in the fifth dimension, we're still together. I mean, it's just the ultimate denial. It's just another flavor of the same thing. Super empaths will also be the same people who have twin flames. It's the same thing. Why? What was that movie? And it could be any love story, but the what is that? The Titanic. Do you want to know why the Titanic was such a popular love story? Because of unrequited love. Because it's a borderline scenario, right? Where the guy sacrifices himself and he drowns. He's pulled down into the deep, dark, cold water, never to be seen again. Right when they're on the verge of falling in love. Now, a real love story is you fall in love, you get married, your projections of each other fade, and you find out the other person has bad breath and farts in the middle of the night, and you can't stand how they do this, and then you learn to see them for who they really are, and you get past their humanity, and then you love them for who they are, and then 20 years later you're holding hands and whatever. That's a true love story, it's just not as glamorous because it's getting to know all the pain in the ass garbage you have to deal with to be in a truly intimate relationship. But the easiest way to avoid that is to be rejected or to have them die off. Unrequited love. That's why, I remember this was probably 35 years ago, and I went to the movies with my then girlfriend who wanted to go see a chick flick, and so we went to go see a chick flick with her, and it was, I can't remember which one it was, but it was just oh my God, the typical chick flick of unrequited love, and I was just yawning through the whole thing. And I realized at one of the emotional points I heard in the theater, I heard this snuffling and chewing sound coming from different parts of the theater. And then I went and I looked, and there was all of these women sitting by themselves, crying and stuffing their face with popcorn. And it was just so sad. That's their understanding of love, unrequited love. And it's unrequited because it's popular because then you don't actually have to get to know somebody. So the thing about borderlines and narcissists is you never get to know them and they never get to know you. And that's why you like it. It's that unrequited love. It's totally narcissistic. It's childish. It's immature. It's got nothing to do with the real thing. So this is the rinse and repeat. And this is the part that, a lot of people miss. They think they're out of it. I'm over that. I hate my this, whatever it is, but they're in the rinse and repeat. All right. So I tell you in the join button section at the super empath level and above, I give you access to private videos where I teach you how I work through it and why those three things are so important, etc., etc. All right, so I'm happy to take any questions. Bear in mind, if you leave a comment, you're opening yourself up to me psychoanalyzing you. If you don't want me to do that, then don't leave a comment. Leave an honest question. Even then, I'm just telling you I'm going to tell you what I see. There's people on YouTube now that are making videos about me and how I'm, they've got problems with things that I've said. And I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to piss people off or hurt people's feelings, but I'm going to tell you the truth as I see it. And lots of times it's going to be harsh reality you might not want to hear. But I'm only sharing with you what has helped me to recover completely from that toxic relationship and what I've done and what I do to stay happy. And if you want that, you're going to have to go through some harsh awarenesses, and you're going to have to look at a lot of painful stuff. And it's okay with me if you end up hating me over it. It's okay. I'll be okay. But just bear in mind that there's a chance I might say something you don't want to hear. Robel Tsegaye, do they ever take responsibility? So remember what I just said. I know you wrote this in the beginning. Wanting them to take responsibility assumes that they're rational. Rational people take responsibility. People who are mentally ill don't have the capacity to take responsibility. So, no, if they ever took responsibility, they'd stop being borderline. They would stop being mentally ill. So, do they ever take responsibility? Not unless they go through 10 years of therapy. If they do take responsibility and it results in a change in behavior, which is different from just verbally mouthing that they take responsibility. Saying that you take responsibility isn't the same as taking responsibility. Taking responsibility means that you change your behavior. But Robel, to ask that question, it means that you secretly want them back. You want them to love you. You want them to change so that you'll get the love that you first got from them. That's what your question is really about. And the answer to your question is no. They don't take responsibility because they can't. You go on to say, does therapy even work for them? Apparently it does, but it doesn't change them. They'll never stop being borderline. They will still split. They just learn, apparently, based on what I've heard, this is, better off talking to a therapist, but they learn how to manage their symptoms, which means that they still split internally, but they act as if. They take actions as though they aren't splitting, and then when they do their best to take care of themselves and nurture themselves so that the splitting fades. So they go through the same thing of they split and then they go through the guilt and all of that. But it's not, what's important to know, what borderlines need to learn, everybody needs to learn it, including codependents, is that it's not what you feel, it's what you do that matters. People don't care if you hate them right now if you're treating them with love. And if you continue to act with love in a loving manner, you can feel whatever you want. For me, if I'm dating a woman and she's able to look me in the eyes and say, I'm murderously rageful at you right now, but take responsibility for her feelings and still act lovingly toward me, I'll marry that person because I'll know that no matter how bad it gets, this person will have the ability to act constructively when things aren't good. And that's what you want. So does therapy even work for them? If they do it for 10 years, it'll work. I just broke up with my BPD ex after her latest outbreak on Christmas Eve, but we keep hoovering each other back. Yeah, so you're taking responsibility, so you haven't gone no contact. So you're asking me, do they take responsibility because you're hoping it'll work? You're asking, does therapy even work? Because like I said, you want them back. So you're hoping that if she goes to therapy that you'll be able to survive the next Hoover and it'll get better. But no, even if they're in therapy, even if they're 2-3 years into therapy, they're still going to destroy you. In fact, you are disrupting their therapy. You're slowing down the process. If you truly love your borderline, you will go completely no contact. You will break off all contact. You will make it impossible for her to contact you. Now that I've said it, you're responsible for it. If you don't do that, you are actively helping her stay sick and maybe even helping her destroy herself. So now that you've heard it, you have only one course of action, which is to break off all contact and make it impossible for her to contact you ever again. So are you sorry you asked that question? Daniel Cervantes. It's been a year since my ex and I split, turned into domestic violence from her, black and white thinking from her turned me into her enemy just for... All right, so you're just describing the splitting process there. Robel says I'm brutally honest. It is. And I'm, again, people might not like what I'm saying. This is when somebody doesn't have an emotional agenda. I have no agenda on this channel or on anybody here. I don't care if you like me or dislike me. I'm here telling my truth about what has helped me. The only reason I keep coming back is because people keep asking me to do it. But if nobody watched my videos and if it wasn't helping, I'd stop. I have no agenda here. And I could. There are people making a crap load of money co-signing people's victimhood. If I wanted to make a shitload of money, all I'd have to do is start super empath channel, making videos about how to destroy the narcissist and how the narcissist will never get over you. And here's the one thing to say. And if I did that, I mean, I would know exactly what to say. I could make so much money. But that's not what I'm in this for. So let's see. People talking about therapy that I don't have any experience in, DBT therapy. I'm assuming, Jessica, you're a recovering borderline, so I have to take your word for it, and I believe you. And somebody else says DBT is amazing, changed my life. So apparently DBT therapy is a way to go. Then somebody asks, is DBT a cure, or must you follow it the rest of your life? I think I answered that. And, again, why are you asking that question? You obviously have a borderline that you want to get cured. But let me destroy your fantasy. Your fantasy of if you can just get the borderline to get DBT, they'll be cured, which means you want them to love you. You're wanting them to love bomb you. You think that them love bombing you is a healthy relationship, and that's what you want. But if they actually get cured, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be the last person they're going to want to date. Because they're going to want to, if they're cured, they're going to want to date somebody based on their actual authentic experience of themselves, not of the false experience that they were giving you, which you're still addicted to. So you think, yeah, if I can just get them cured. How do I know? Because I was there. I had the same thought. That's what I thought was going to happen. If I could just get my borderline ex into therapy, I'd go into I had it all planned out in my head. We'd go in there together. Maybe we'd have a session together, and I'd be, the doctor would be telling her she's got borderline personality disorder, and I would say, yes, you do, but I still accept you, honey. And then it would be okay, and she would and then she'd love me, and she'd just love bomb me for the rest of my life. No, if they get healthy, you're the last person they're going to want to be with. Because you're a codependent. You don't want a real relationship. You want the love bombing. So whether they get cured or not has no, if you have an ex, just wave goodbye. No matter how you look at it, it's over. Either it's over because they will continue to destroy you and make your life miserable, and you'll never get the love you want. Or if they do get help, they're going to say, you know what, I need to be alone right now. I can't be with somebody. Or they're going to say, the more that I think about it, our relationship was destructive to me. You don't realize as the codependent that you are also destructive. It's really important to understand that, everybody. There's no such thing as the borderline and the healthy codependent. There's no, again, somebody came onto the channel and I was talking early on in my views on the whole super empath thing, and somebody said, no, you're wrong. The scale is on the one end you've got super empath, and on the other end you have psychopath. And then I said, no, they're right next to each other. But here's the scale as I see it. You have the narcissist, full-blown, overt, not covert, but overt narcissist. The evil genius who is out to destroy and use everybody and feed off of them and discard them. The con man, the womanizer, the thief. That is the narcissist on one end. That is somebody who is a result of horrific damage that happened during infancy, where they were discarded and or abused and or shamed. And in order to survive that, which was killing them, they were neglected almost enough to kill them, literally, physically kill them as infants. They got just enough interaction that kept them from dying. So in order to protect themselves from dying, the horrific damage, the horrific PTSD that they have, they create this false firewall of of a personality, which is I can do no wrong, everybody loves me, and everybody's here for my pleasure, and they have no empathy. That is the false firewall. If you were to get rid of that false firewall, it might literally kill them. That's why the full-on borderline is usually incapable of getting therapy. It turns out some of them can. Sam Vaknin is a good example. I don't know him personally, but based on his channel and based on what he and his wife say, it looks like he's actually gone to therapy and been able to change his behavior enough that he's a functioning, healthy, loving person in his interactions. So he's at least one, if that's true, he's at least one narcissist that can heal. But mostly they can't. That's the thing that defines the narcissist, is that they're just not capable of being vulnerable. And in order to heal, you have to be vulnerable. So that's on one end of the spectrum. And then you have the borderline. The borderline is a failed narcissist. This is somebody, usually a woman, and I think the feminine mindset and the feminine hormones that run through the body, which is about bonding, that disrupts their ability to create that pure psychopath false firewall. But it's there. They're not able to keep it up all the time. So it falls away, and then it goes back and forth between the vulnerable infant who wants mommy and daddy's love to the narcissistic psychopath who destroys you. And again, this is the illusion. People say, how do I separate the borderline, whom I'm making progress with, and that narcissist part of them? I say you can't. The narcissist is the result of the vulnerable, emotionally arrested infant. So that's what creates such cognitive dissonance, is that when they're in their borderline phase, their open, vulnerable phase, they express a desire for intimacy and a desire for self-awareness and a desire to grow and a desire to connect and a strong desire to love and be loved. And but they can't separate that because it's intimately connected with the psychopath that they turn into the moment that you actually do reach them. When you do actually get them to feel loved, or when they feel vulnerability, then they turn into the psychopath. You can't separate the two. So you have the narcissist, you have the failed narcissist, which is the borderline, and then you have the failed borderline, which is the codependent. So everything that I say about the borderline is true about codependence. They express it differently. Maybe they're arrested at 5 years of age or 4 years of age instead of 2 months. They still split. They still can't tolerate love, and you see that because they spend all their time talking about how the narcissist this and the narcissist that, and I'm a professional victim. That's where it turns into covert narcissism. Once again, covert in this sense doesn't mean a narcissist who's hiding from you. Today I was flipping through and somebody started to double down on I think somebody responding to one of my videos without naming me was doubling down about how the covert narcissist is an evil genius and they hide and pretend to be loving when they're not, and that's not what covert means in this instance. Covert means hidden. Another word is secondary or inverted. Those all mean the same thing, that the borderline, their primary interaction is not as a psychopath. Their primary interaction is as a codependent, meaning they want to please. So the codependent need to be indispensable to you in order to please and to get your love is their overt expression. But that underneath that is a covert, meaning hidden. It doesn't mean that you're purposefully hiding it like an evil genius. It means that it's hiding even from them. So the borderline is just as powerless over when they split as you are. They are just as damaged by their splitting as you are. They are just as much a victim of their mental illness as you are. And unfortunately, you'll never be able to fix them. Your desire to fix them is your covert narcissism. I didn't say you're a covert narcissist. It's part of your covert narcissism. If you're a codependent, if you're a super empath, you have covert narcissism, which means that your desire to be with somebody who is emotionally unavailable, emotionally immature, who never sees you as anything other than a parent, who can never truly see you for who you are, who will split on you, and if you give them enough time, they will destroy your entire self-esteem and your confidence in your life if you give them enough rope to do it with. Your need to continue to experience that is your narcissistic need to get back at your parents. The reason why a borderline splits is they're actually getting back at their parents. They are expressing the rage, that their infantile rage at their parents, but they're projecting it onto you. You're doing the same thing. Your need to continue to appease and save and help and heal and love is your covert narcissistic need to get your parents to love you. And you're doing what you were taught. You were taught your transactional codependent relationship was, in order to be a good person, you had to make mommy and daddy love you. You'll sing, you'll dance, you'll get them tea, cookie, coffees, you'll make yourself into a bad person, you'll go out and do drugs and get yourself thrown into jail so that you can make them feel better while they shake their finger at you and say, I never want anything to do with you. And then you get to rebel and you go off and join Antifa and you go and you tear down buildings and smash windows because you're still trying to get mommy and daddy to love you. That's your codependent way of doing it. We are all in this together. There are no victims. The good news is that the further down the scale you go, if you're, obviously the more narcissistic you are, the less likely you are to be able to heal. The further you go towards pure codependent, and I'm making a distinction between the covert narcissist, super empath, and the actual codependent. The covert narcissist, super empath, their covert, their firewall is the victim. So you have the narcissist who is the abuser, and then you have the victim, but they're both their psychopathic firewall. So the codependent, the super empath, covert narcissist, they get their supply by being a victim, always being a victim. And the more victim somebody is, the more passive aggressive they are. The more, the thing about the super empath, they show it, the whole reason why they come up with this whole supernova thing. What is a supernova? A supernova is an exploding star that destroys everything around it. And they say, I don't want to go supernova, but if you keep pushing me, I will go supernova on your ass, and I am the worst thing that you've ever seen. And that assumes that you have to be with somebody who's abusive, and you don't. So this is them seeking out and creating a scenario where they will be abused beyond their capacity to handle it. And then I had to go supernova on your ass, which means that they get an opportunity to express their psychopathic rage where they have no empathy and they destroy you. That's why they need to see the narcissist as this evil genius. That's why they need to see the borderline as an evil genius. So any one of you who want to talk to me about how evil the borderline is and how they need to be held responsible, it's because of, two things going on. One is if you're a codependent, it means you want them to be rational so you can convince them to love you. If you're a covert narcissist, it's so that you can justify going supernova, which means going completely psychopath, and destroying somebody else, so that you can even make videos about the super empath destroys the evil narcissist. So all this, can you see it's all the same thing? The good news is the further down the scale you go, if you're just a codependent, then you can actually heal. It means you don't necessarily have a mental illness, and you can learn how to love and be loved. But you have to be willing to look at yourself. You have to be really You have to be willing to see the worst in yourself. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to continue to stay infected, and you'll infect others in some other way. See what else? Jessica Rose says, do you think that self-awareness is the difference between those who seek therapy on their own and those who don't or won't project their issue onto others? Yes. The desire to be self-aware, the desire to really understand and go so deep within that you can see the micro changes. Like there's a woman on here, got a channel. You know who I'm talking about. She's in the mental health field. She claims to be cured of borderline personality disorder, and or says that, oh no, I'm not borderline, I actually just have PTSD. And she really hates what I say, that what makes the borderline split is that they actually fall in love with you and they actually feel vulnerable. She doesn't like that. She has numerous videos trying to tell me that I'm wrong without stating me personally. She also hates other things that I have to say about that. But those are the things that she doesn't like, is completely focused around the ability to take a look at yourself and go deep. She also doesn't like my crying baby, because when I put the crying baby on there, because that represents to me the actual state of the borderline all the time. They're in this state of scream crying, and I think being able to identify that is really helpful. So to be able to go deep enough in to go, and I'm not alone in this. I came to that observation that what makes the borderline split is the feeling of being loved, the vulnerability that is stimulated when they actually feel loved. Now, listen to my words. They feel it. They look at you and they start to feel love that makes them split. Or you love them enough, you love bomb them back enough, you take care of them, you nurture them enough that it actually penetrates and they start to feel it. She doesn't like that. That, to me, is somebody who is in denial, who hasn't done the work to go deep within to look. So to answer your question, yeah, being self-aware, being willing to look at, what happens in a nanosecond. That doesn't happen consciously. So therapy gives you the ability to look at your unconscious. That's why therapy and 12 steps go together really well, because the more that you're able to look at your unconscious, the deeper you're able to go with your steps, and vice versa. The deeper that you go working your steps and analyze yourself, the deeper you're going to go in therapy to see your unconscious. But unconscious means what it sounds like. You're not aware. So, you can point it out in other people, but if people point it out in you, you're going to fight it because you're not conscious of it. The truest thing that anybody can ever say is if somebody says you're, you're really angry, or you're, whatever it is. They have something that, psychologically they say about you. The truest thing anybody can say is, if that's true, I'm not aware of it. Because you can't be aware of what you're unaware of. Now, you might have a lot of evidence to back up your feeling that I'm not aware of that. But another thing that shows that somebody's not unconscious is that when you accuse them of something, they'll say, am I? I don't think so. I don't think I am. That's the sign of somebody who's not unconscious. An unconscious person will rage back at you immediately why that didn't happen, or why they didn't lose the election. They're just unconscious. Right? All right, what else? So yes, to answer your question, yes, I do think that's the thing. And why else would a borderline seek out therapy by themselves? And this is what I keep telling you. Everybody, if you love the borderline, the kindest thing you can do is go completely no contact. Block all contact with them. And if you feel it necessary, just throw out, just in one sentence without elaborating, just say, that this relationship is damaging to me. I think you might have borderline personality disorder. For my health, I have to go no contact. Then if everybody did that, if everybody that they interacted with, when they split on them, would say, you know what, that's really hurtful, I think you might have borderline personality disorder, they would be that much more, motivated to go get help. So yeah, I think the only way a borderline is going to heal is if they get help because they want to, and because they know that if they don't, they won't ever have love, and they won't ever be able to love themselves. And I think their first goal should be to love themselves. Whatever gets you in therapy is what gets you in. But in order to stay, the difference between somebody who doesn't recover and somebody who does is the willingness to be honest. It's the most important thing. Okay, some dude also had the anxiety in his stomach. I understand that. Jessica Rose, okay. She's suggesting people find DBT therapy, finding a good therapist. All right, let's see what else. Guys talking to each other, looks like. Where do we go here? Sorry, I'm scrolling through. This is why I prefer questions, because if I have to scroll through all the comments, then it takes me time. All right, what else? Okay, Jessica Rose is not a borderline. She's some other thing I don't understand because I'm not a therapist. But apparently it's similar enough. Okay, Otis, question. Isn't maintaining some sense of friendship with boundaries a way of helping them feel less abandonment and more claimed? Otis, my first question to you is, are you doing any of the stuff I recommend? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But that's my first question for you. Because your question has an assumption to it. And that really, your question is you're trying to get me to co-sign your assumption. And your assumption is maintaining some sense of friendship with boundaries is a way of helping them to feel less abandonment and more claimed. I don't know what claimed means. That sounds kind of creepy, like you're owning somebody, you claim them. I don't know if that's what you meant. So maintaining some sense of friendship with boundaries is not a way of helping them, because your assumption is that they're rational. The other thing is you're not being honest. You're wanting to tell me that being friends with the borderline, your borderline X, is because you want to be helpful. Now, I know that's the narrative you tell yourself. I know you have feelings like that, but that's not your true intention. That's certainly not your only intention. Your intention is you want to get back together with her. I mean, you can bullshit yourself, from now until doomsday if you want. But I'm not going to co-sign that. I know that you want to stay friends with her because you're hoping that friendship will turn into something else. So you're still wrapped up in the addiction, and I get it. I mean, it was, again, I had 40 years of 12 steps and 30 years of therapy, and it took everything inside of me to go no contact and to start working the 12 steps and, talking to my therapist honestly about the relationship for the first time. And even then, I was still hoping that it was going to, I was still trying to figure out a way to get it to work. So this is why it's important to have a program, because you can have all the desires you want. You just know no matter what, I do this. I do the exact opposite of what I want. So Otis, you got to get honest that you want to maintain the friendship because you want whatever it is you want from her. Stop bullshitting yourself that you're doing it because you want to help. And stop buying into the codependent thing that you have so much power that you can lessen their feelings of abandonment. Again, you don't understand borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is that they have a black hole where their identity should be, and they are completely, totally consumed by the experience that they are always being abandoned. That's why Sometimes they split on you because you did something, like you actually did. You gave them a beautiful gift. You gave them the best birthday of their life or whatever it was, and that was just too intimate for them and they split on you. Or you did nothing. You literally did nothing. I make the joke, you looked at your watch. Could have been anything. They're waiting to split. They are constantly in this state of being abandoned. Remember, it's not about you. You think you're important. You're not. As somebody said, I said it on one of my earlier videos, the thing that really helped snap me out of it was I typed in borderline personality disorder, and then I typed in something like lack of empathy, because I was starting to surmise that perhaps this borderline was, because she had just been so pathologically psychopathic towards me. I mean, the level of discard and denial, and the depth of how specifically she hurt me on such a personal level in the worst way possible that only a psychopath could have done, made me think, maybe I'm not seeing something. Maybe she is psychopathic. Maybe she's sociopathic. I was using the term sociopathic. I use the term psychopathic because psychopath and sociopath actually mean the same thing, even though people differentiate them. There's I've heard psychiatrists say that they're really the same thing. It means lack of empathy. And so I found online something that said, you have to realize that the borderline never sees you. So Otis, you think you're being a friend to somebody. Being a friend means that they see you. She doesn't see you. You don't exist. What they see, the way they put it, which was beautiful, is that they never see you. What they see is a fuzzy outline of a human being that they project all of their fears onto, or whatever their projections are. The love bombing, you, Otis, I'm willing to bet you want the love bombing. That's what you want, that again. You want to get that again. You think that was love. But that is just as, the reason why the love bombing feels wrong. I mean, there are things about it you like, of course, externally. But if you sit with it, this was my experience anyway. Even during it, I was like, something's not right about this. It feels like cotton candy. And in fact, the more she bombs me, the more insecure I seem to feel. And the more frightened I was feeling, and the more nervous and the more anxious I was starting to feel. And it created cognitive dissonance, because on the one hand, she's giving me foot massages and baking me cookies and and treating me like a king and telling me she's going to do this and that, and I can't find anything wrong, but my insides are saying, get out, this is something here is bad. My knee was swelling up like this, which means that when that happens, it means I'm in unconscious conflict. And I was having physical pains, and I was just kind of like I wasn't really, if you can see pictures of me, I can show you pictures where I just look like I'm just not really part of reality. I mean, it felt like I was in some weird zone. So Otis, even when they're love bombing you, they are objectifying you, meaning they don't see you and they don't love you. It's pure projection. She doesn't see you for who you are. If she's love bombing you, she is presenting herself in a way that she knows you will respond to. She's finding what your fantasy is and she's transforming herself into that fantasy in her codependent method of making herself indispensable to you, so that you're her supply. It's just as destructive during the love bombing phase as it is during the discard phase. There's no difference. It's just two sides of the same projection. So you are under some delusion that you have a friendship. Friendship means somebody who sees you for who you are, somebody who has your back, somebody that loves you with your good and bad qualities. Somebody, when, a friend, when you say to a friend, hey, you know what, I'm going to move to Germany for a year. Your friend goes, oh man, I'm going to miss you, but that's awesome. I'm really happy for you. But this is why love relationships aren't even as loving as friendships, because a love prospect will go, you're moving for a year? What am I going to do? Who am I going to have sex with? Who's going to watch movies with me? You can't leave. That's it. I'm breaking up with you. I'm not judging it. I mean, I would do it too, under conditions like that. I don't want to have a long distance relationship. But so, look, you're in such denial that you even have the balls to ask me this question. Maintaining some sense of you can't even maintain a friendship. Listen to your words. You have to maintain some sense of friendship, because you can't even be friends with an untreated borderline. There's nothing to hang on to. What you mean by that is, can't I just sort of hang out and wait for her to contact me and be whatever it is that she needs me to be in her psychopathic narcissism, whatever that is? I mean, aren't I being helpful by doing that? No. How is that? You're her drug. How is being her drug helpful to her? And the part of helping them to feel less abandoned, again, you're in delusion over what borderline personality disorder is. They always feel abandoned, no matter how much you try to prove otherwise. So how are you going to feel somebody who feels completely abandoned, and that is a black hole of abandonment that can never be filled? That is coming from a borderline. So the borderline explained that to me. They said, yeah, no matter how much love you give us, it just falls into the black hole and it disappears. So how could you possibly lessen their abandonment? Especially when everything you do to lessen their abandonment stimulates them to feel abandoned. You're in denial. You don't understand what you're dealing with. She has a mental illness, and you haven't fully understood that. Again, are you doing those three things, brah? Rubble. Okay, no, that was okay, let's see. What else here? All right, so again, I'm trying to find the question. Any questions? All right. Yeah, that's it. I don't see any more questions here. So again, Jessica, if you have see what Otis did, after all me telling him all the things he did wrong, the one thing he did right was he wrote the word question in all caps so that I would see it. So if you have a question, do that so that I can see it and get to it and answer it. Can you please, she says, can you please go into the differences between someone who is borderline and someone who is a vulnerable or covert narcissist? It's all the same soup. It makes me want to know why you want to know that, but a borderline is called a vulnerable narcissist. A borderline is a secondary narcissist, a secondary psychopath. Again, covert means hidden. It doesn't mean that they're hiding. It doesn't mean that they're willfully hiding their narcissism. It means that it's hidden even from them. So it means it'll come out. And that's what's really driving. When I think about my borderline ex, I can't escape the feeling that all of you have, that she's evil. And that feeling that I get is that at the root, underneath the rest of her, at the root of it is the psychopath. That the psychopath inside, which is not conscious, this is not her planning out people's demise. She is a victim of her mental illness. And at the root of her is her mental illness, which controls her, which is absolutely psychopathic evil. And the whole, Sam Vaknin explained it really well. He said the whole goal of the borderline is to dump you before you dump them. And they will manipulate, or their disease will manipulate a scenario where they can then justify that to themselves. So all of the craziness, all of the hoovering. Again, hoovering doesn't mean that they're now making progress, that they're seeking to connect. It just means it's part of their, their narcissistic cycle. They are a narcissist. Borderlines is a form of narcissism. So, I mean, to me, it's just shades of gray. It's the same thing. At the core, you have a psychopathic narcissist. Now, that's not a judgment, because there apparently are psychopathic narcissists who can recover. And the codependent operates from their psychopathic narcissism. The narcissism of the codependent is, every one of them is doing the same thing, whether they're the narcissist or the codependent. Super empath, borderline, covert narcissist, overt narcissist. I mean, it's all just this salad of narcissism. The codependent is probably the most difficult to see their narcissism, because they have a less maladaptive connection to the world and to other people. But they're still very psychopathic, they're still very abusive, and they're still very unconscious. But it just doesn't have the same level of, dysfunction. If you're on the codependent side, like I said, you're more likely to be able to recover. And because you're more likely to look at your selfishness. So what the codependent is doing is they are recreating the scenario they went through as kids, which whatever their transactional relationship was, whatever role they were supposed to play in their dysfunctional family with their narcissistic family members, they recreate that, or they seek somebody who will create that, who will abuse them narcissistically, or who will have a better way to look at it is, the word transactional relationship works really well with the pure codependent. So the transactional relationship is not a loving relationship. It means I do for you, and in exchange you do for me. Now that does happen in love relationships, but it's done consciously and directly. So it can be loving when it's done consciously. But when it's done unconsciously, it's always destructive and always abusive. So that's what the codependent, that's what Otis doesn't realize about his question. He doesn't realize his question is actually very narcissistic and abusive. He doesn't know that. He's consciously totally unaware of that. And he certainly doesn't feel any of those things. But it is. Because what he wants is, he wants to create a friendship. He wants to make himself indispensable to his borderline ex, so that she will, have some sense of friendship with him. And he's going to want to capitalize on that. And he's going to capitalize on that by wanting to make himself indispensable. In his mind, he is the only super being who can prevent this borderline from feeling abandoned. So he's going to help them by feeling less abandoned. That's his way of making himself indispensable to the borderline. He knows their weakness. He even says it. He knows that their weakness is that they have a fear of abandonment, a crippling fear of abandonment. Now, if you treat them with love and respect, when they act out, you go, hey, I don't deserve that. In fact, that is such an abusive thing. I don't want you in my life. I see that you're very hurt. I hope you go get help. I'm not going to be part of this. See ya. That is a very loving thing to do, because you know that anything else is making yourself available for pain, but more importantly, you're hurting them, because they're going to misunderstand your honest feelings of affection and love and support. You'll know that they will misunderstand that, and they will use it in the wrong way, and it will create more pain for them. So out of love, you say, I'm not going to interact with that. You, Otis, since this question was asked, your narcissistic pathology is that you are going to take advantage of that that person is helpless when it comes to wanting to not be abandoned. And so you know that at some point between splits, they will be powerless over your super empath desire to fix them. They will be powerless over it. And you know, by keeping the friendship, at some point, that crack in their defenses will open and you're going to fly in with your superpowers and you're going to make them feel less abandoned. But you also know that's only temporary. But you're hoping you can make a big enough wedge that you can take advantage of that long enough to get them to love bomb you. That's psychopathic and selfish. I know you don't, I hope you know this isn't a personal attack. I'm only telling you this because I did it. I did the same thing. And it's because you don't feel worthy of love. Your transactional relationship when you were a kid was to be this healer, this helper. This was, whatever specifics were for you, I don't know, but that was part of your transactional relationship. So you don't know how to feel love. Here's the other narcissistic thing. Borderlines will never, ever give you true intimacy, which means you never have to take responsibility for the intense love that you want to feel. So it's a narcissistic way. You find somebody where you can unload all of your loving feelings without then having to be responsible for them loving you back. And that's frightening. That means you don't want a commitment. Again, you even say it. You want to have some sense of friendship. It means you know that they won't commit even to a friendship. They'll come and go, like the Huns coming out of the forest and shooting their arrows and then going back. It's going to be a hit and run. You know that that's what's going to happen. So you know there's no hope of any real connection, which gives you the ability to have your narcissistic love bombing. You can feel all the love. Even the unrequited love is a narcissistic feeling of getting high off of the feelings of all the love that you have. It's narcissism. Because when somebody turns around, when you love somebody and they turn around and they say, I'm going to love you back, that's the most frightening thing in the world for a codependent. Because now you're responsible. You're truly responsible to take care of somebody who says, no, I'm going to do it. No, for real. I'm going to love you back. I'm going to make myself vulnerable. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to, because then you're going to have to feel all of your abandonment issues yourself. You're trying to avoid abandonment. You're trying to avoid it the other way around. You're chasing after somebody whose abandonment issues are so intense that they always abuse you and never love you, which means you never get any reciprocal love back. But if you did, if somebody loved you back, you would have to feel all of the pain, all of the sadness, all of the trauma, all of the tragedy. You would have to mourn for your own child within you that never got the love that he deserved. So you chase after a borderline. You never have to deal with that. Somebody comes along and actually loves you, I guarantee you'll go run in the opposite direction. And this is why borderlines and codependence, I was meant to say, this is why codependents seek the wounding. That's why people ask me, what if two codependents get together? What they're asking me is, I want to find somebody who will bond with me on my wound. Can I bond with somebody who has the same wound as me, and will that be love? Nope. I mean, it's not impossible. I suppose it's possible two codependents get together and then they go to therapy together and then they learn. Because true commitment, like a true marriage, especially marriage is the commitment of saying, I am here to be with you while you learn to see your true self. And when you go through the trauma and the tragedy of seeing your true self, I'm going to hold your hand while you do that. And that's why you don't marry somebody that can't love you back, because they're saying the same thing. Because that's somebody who says, I'm going to allow you to live in the mirror of seeing yourself. And you're giving that gift to them. There's somebody that's coming on the channel that's giving me the narcissistic inverse of that, which is they say, this is somebody who wants to tell me why being a super empath, but more specifically being a twin flame, why a twin flame relationship is really spiritual. And they say it's because they mirror you and they bring out all of your negativity so that you can learn to love yourself. And there's no acknowledgement of the value of the other person. The way they describe that, it means that it's purely transactional, that person They don't even see that person. That the job of that person is to abuse them in such a way where they're seeing their true self, and then they go off and then they work on themselves in the 5D, which means that that person had literally no identity and no value. And you have to see them as your other half. They're not even another being walking around. They're your other half of your soul. It is absolute, pure, covert narcissism in its highest expression. There's just nothing more narcissistic than twin flame relationships. Because again, listen to how they describe it. Yeah, oh no, he's married and has kids with somebody else, but in the 5D, we're together and he's helping me, you know, and you go and you be with them and they stimulate you, meaning that they abuse you. They stimulate you so that you can see all of the things within you that need to be fixed. And then you take that pain and you go and you work on yourself in the 5D. It is just such utter narcissism. And it, you know, and you don't have any empathy for the karmic. Oh, he's with a karmic. He's married to a karmic right now, but I know someday he'll come back to connecting to me because I'm more spiritual than he is, and someday he'll awaken to his true divine masculine. It is such utter narcissism. That other person they're talking about, and everybody in their life has zero value to them. It's just so horrendous. That's like just the ultimate covert narcissist. All right. What else? Robert, please write the word question so I can see it. Is there a right way and a wrong way to no contact? Yes. Since they're not rational beings, is it best to just disappear from their life without an elaborate explanation? Yes. Bear in mind, your relationship is not real. You know they'll do that to you in a heartbeat. So again, I mean, you know, Otis doesn't want to abandon the pathological abandoner. I mean, the reality, the external reality is that there is no relationship. A relationship is when you do something and another person does the same and you meet each other and there's a consistency. There's no relationship. So how can you hurt somebody who refuses to follow the same thing they require of you? You can't abandon them, but they can abandon you whenever the hell they want? Why are you even giving them that? I mean, this is just objectively speaking. But from the health perspective, what is the kindest thing you can do for them? Again, if everybody responded to the borderline with ruthless love, which meant that when they split on them and were outrageously hurtful, if everybody said the first time they did it, wow, that is really hurtful, I'm not going to be a part of that. You've obviously got problems. You should go get help. But I'm out of here. I wish all the best. But if nobody ever co-signed them, they would be far more motivated to go get help. Every time that you deal with them and have pseudo relationships or, connect with them or allow them to have even the feeling that they have that they know that you're there. Even if they spend a year going off doing something else, just the knowledge that they can call you whenever they want is enough to keep them in their self-destructive, self-hurtful behavior. So yes, I've made it really clear. In this video, before you asking it, I made it clear. You break off all contact, you block your phone, you block them text, you block them email, you block them Facebook, Twitter, every YouTube, every kind of social media. If you have to move, you move and you don't tell them where you're going. You change your phone number. Because you have the same phone number, they might pick up somebody else's phone and call you from somebody else's phone or text you from somebody else's phone. So you get another phone, you completely block every avenue of contact. And if you want to, on the way out, you say, without judging or throwing fingers or anything like that, you just say, this relationship is really hurtful and damaging to me. I think you should check into borderline personality disorder. I'm gonna go no contact for my own health. I wish you all the best. And that's it. That you don't need to say any more than that. In fact, saying any more than that will make it worse. But you don't even have to do that. They already know. They already know what they're doing. They can't stop themselves. They might not have full awareness, but they know. They know that they split on people. They know that they've split on a bunch of people. They're still reliving the splits that they wish they hadn't done, 3 or 4 or 5 relationships ago. All right, what else? All right, so Otis thanks me for responding to him. Yeah, so, there's nothing that you're saying that I haven't said that anybody else says. You got to do the 3 things. Therapy, 12 steps, meditation. If you're not doing those 3 things, it's very likely that the infection will overtake you. And maybe you won't get back together with this borderline, but you'll find another one, or another one will find you. So don't skimp on that. That's my suggestion. Also, Robel says, also, I have a lot of common friends with my BPD ex. What's the best way to deal with her if our paths cross again? I don't know. I would do everything in my power just to never, I've heard that before. That's the problem. They're going to date one of your friends right in front of you. You'll walk into your own apartment and she'll be fucking some guy on the floor of your apartment. Your best friend. They'll say, hey, look at my new girlfriend. Do you need to get a new crowd of friends? I don't know. I would do absolutely whatever it took. This is what therapy is good for. You talk to your therapist about this. You talk to your sponsor in CODA about this. They'll give you suggestions on what to do. Lydia asks question, why BPD see us as their worst enemies after discard? I have explained that, I think, many, 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 many times. So please keep watching my videos. I don't feel like going into it right now because it's a long rant, but it's because they have a mental illness. But keep watching the channel and you'll understand more. What else? Otis. Yeah, so your desire, Otis, you say, I see my narcissistic tendencies more and more. I don't have superpowers, but I do want to help someone change for the better if I could. But you're right, Mike, I feel unworthy. Interesting, I don't hear you talk about yourself in there. Like, I want to change for the better. I want to make my life better. I want to love myself more. You're focusing on, and now we've got it in the third person. I want to help someone change for the better if I could, but you're right. So yeah, that feeling of unworthiness is what's driving this. Because, somebody who does feel worthy goes, why would I waste my time on somebody that obviously doesn't want to be loved? Why would I waste my time being friends with somebody who doesn't want to be friends with me? The cognitive dissonance of continuing to have this strong desire to help someone that has abused you over and over again. Something's not right there. And yeah, you don't feel worthy, and that's the sad part. You got your worth, and you continue to get your worth by this transactional relationship of being there for somebody who won't love you. Now, obviously, there was something in childhood. You're still trying to get mom's love, and you don't feel worthy, because a true mother-child relationship. It's true with both men and women, but there's a special place that mom has with men that that men seek for in relationships, and mom is supposed to look at her little man and, reflect back his strength, that he can go and accomplish anything in this world, that he is so beautiful that just by being alive, he's worthy of being loved. That's what moms should give their little boys. You didn't get that. You're still waiting for mom to give that to you. Mom didn't give you the love that you wanted, so you're going to go and find somebody who reminds you of mom so that you can get them to love you. Everything is based on your lack of worth. The message you got was, Otis, you don't have value in and of yourself, so you have to do something to earn it from me. I'm not just going to give it to you, and I'm not going to love you for who you are. Jessica Rose, question. Before you go, can you please list the 7 stages of a toxic relationship again? I came in late. Well, it's in the title there, but... 1, seduction. 2, devaluation. 3, gaslighting. 4, cognitive dissonance. 5, appeasement. 6, discard. 7, repetition compulsion. And then the 8th, which I didn't list as 8, would be rinse and repeat. And that's the whole point, avoiding the 8th one. You can't avoid the first 7. That if you get pulled in, you will go through all 7 of those. It's the 8th one that you have to learn how to avoid, which is rinse and repeat. And the shortest version of that is, I could, instead of rinse and repeat, I could say revenge. Getting revenge would be cycle 8, which then throws you right back into it. So the way to do that is to have your anger, but then look at your expectations and your selfish expectations, and that, when you look at that and look at yourself, why you went after it, then you won't have to repeat it. And again, this is arbitrary. I'm just made up 7 arbitrary things. I'm not saying this is any, scientific study of how it works. This is just, me trying to come up with things that I see that I wanted all people to feel that they relate to. I've been making all these videos about, the how toxic the whole super empath going supernova thing, and how psychopathic it is, that people, if they're in that, may think that I don't relate. So they think I'm just, abusing them, or, shaming them, which isn't my goal. But if you see that I relate to you on all of these other levels, that I've been there, and to come to the realization of all of that, that pain and that desire for revenge is really the most toxic thing, the most toxic response to this. And that's, what helped me was to learn how to see my own part in it, which then gave me the ability to become apathetic, which is the same as forgiving somebody. You can't forgive somebody until you become apathetic about them. You can't forgive somebody until you no longer have a selfish agenda. And when you look at your selfish agendas and you realize how off you were because of them, then you'll go, wow, that doesn't help me to have that. And then you'll sort of wake up from the haze and you go, oh my God, that person was so damaged. No wonder they did that. Oh my God, I would do the same thing if that had happened to me. That is so horrible. And I'm going to stay the hell away from that person forever. And I'm never going to get in that scenario again. But holy crap, that's, I've said it before. If there was one scenario I would fix cluster B personalities. It's so horrific what they have to live with. I have the most compassion for them. And I have nothing but compassion and love for my borderline ex. But I have zero selfish agenda. I want nothing from her. And that's where you want to be. And if you're angry and you want to go supernova, or if you want to talk about going supernova, or, before you go supernova, you try and stay friends with them. You try and, what Otis doesn't realize is that he's on his way to becoming supernova by trying to be friends, by trying to, appease her need for feeling, her fear of abandonment. When that backfires on him, which it would, then he's going to want to go supernova. which means he's going to want to get angry and he's going to point fingers. And that's the first sign of actually healing, when you can finally go, fuck that, make them feel, lessen her abandonment. Fuck that. Do you have any idea what she did to me? She doesn't deserve a fucking thing from me. And when you go through that and you demonize them, it means that you're owning the damage that happened to you. But then you have to then go further. Then you have to do, this is what the fourth step is. The fourth step is looking at your resentments. So you first have to become conscious of them. And then you can look at your resentments, and that evil, demon-possessed woman, you have every reason to believe that. And then you can realize that, oh, I had a lot of selfishness. Oh, no wonder I'm so angry because I didn't get what I wanted. Oh, and oh my God, she's so damaged. Why would I expect a damaged person to love me? That's so selfish of me. Why would I even want to appease their need for, of not feeling abandoned? That's so selfish of me to do that. You don't know that, but it is. It's so selfish. All right. I'm repeating myself. What else? That's it. No more questions. I'm done. I'll see you guys all next time. Again, click the join button at the super empath level, and I go into depth talking about things that I needed to do to flip my thinking so that I could actually get on the path to recovery. And I talk about those 3 things. And the 90-day challenge is also something that's really helpful for people if you want to get, focus on you, focus on your soul, get your soul moving and growing. And live your life according to your soul instead of living for other people. So those 2 things go really well together. Of course, subscribe and smash the bell button, and stay safe, and I'll see you guys whenever I see you.